Test, test. Good. Ready.
Well, you still got a couple minutes.
Okay.
Whatever.
We should announce though that about to go.
Because we lost our MC.
Yeah.
We'll be starting Patrick Roehrman's presentation here in about 4 minutes.
catch.
Okay, I'll get it.
He took it. All right.
Where's your knife?
Upstairs, sharp. I didn't want to cut a coffee bag with it after you sharpened it.
That's what it's for. Slicing things.
Yeah. Does it give you an edge?
It gives me the edge.
It does
I've
give you
always
the
got
edge?
the edge.
Yeah.
Always got the edge.
Oh, now they're paying attention.
Oh. David's going to boo. Come on, boo. That's a
All right, guys.
pathetic
We're flowing
boo.
into the afternoon, and my selfish self-promotion before I introduce you is that I need to pack up my coffee for sale and take it back home. So if you want to buy some of it, now would be a good time to do that, probably before about, not now, but like before 3 p.m. or so. And it's okay if you don't, because I have it sold the second I get it home. But if you want one of those awesome classic tins, they're right back there. And
I like those chocolate covered espresso beans.
I'm sold out of those.
Are you really?
Yeah.
They're great for conversation because you can eat them and then people stare at the specks in your teeth while you're talking.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Goat
keeps
turds.
that keeps the attention. Anyway, I met Patrick at this event my first time, and we became friends, I think, because I looked at you and said, "You're an asshole." And he laughed. And I knew that we had a special connection. But really, that was also where Hollow Roast was born. And he was one of the TSP members who would call me and say really helpful, critical feedback, like, the ink on your label is running off as you ship it, Nicole. Perhaps you should get a different kind of label.
Yeah. Come
Or
on.
just out of the blue. Or he'd say, "Are you using a leveraged shipping vendor so you get cheaper prices?" So he would just every so often drop in, and he's done that ever since. The most memorable time was when he called me and said, "Okay, we're about 12 hours away." And he showed up with some
Just a couple.
double-digit number of children to my house.
Just a few.
And from the moment they were there, it was like a cloud of child locusts harvesting
Devouring
my things.
the everything.
Always cooking something, but they
Making
did
a
leave it
mess.
cleaner than when they got there. So you're welcome back anytime. Anyway, he's going to talk about creating a different kind of edge.
Yes. We're going to talk today about the edge you want starts today. Who knows what the TSP motto is? Motto. Come on now. Is there seriously nobody? Who's got it? Will. I mean, what kind of crappy motto is that? Helping you live a better life if times get tough or even if they don't. I know it and I got to read it because it's freaking, what is that? 1, 2, 3. That's like 20 words. Jack's going to count them now and be like, no, that's not. So, Jack has been changing people's lives now for how long?
With the show, 17 years.
17 years. And, the years go by quick. And it's the people that you meet at these events that really can change the trajectory of your life. And as I look across the room, there's some new faces, which is good, but there's lots of old faces, David. So I was talking with a gentleman earlier. We were talking about, past and, how life takes you different ways. And we're affecting people's lives every day with the decisions we make and the things that we do. And it starts out by the people that you hang around. Proverb says, "He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed." So this was me back in September 2019. Look at that. Look at that fatty. Yeah. I was, the stress of launching a business and raising a family and all the things that we face in life, the challenges that we face, were stacking up, and I was in horrible shape. And I have asthma. I had problems breathing and doing things. But the one thing that the stakeholder program, for those that don't know, Jack helped me go from being a full-time lineman to a full-time knife maker. Thanks a lot, Jack. I went from a good job, 6 figures, benefits, holidays, all the good stuff.
That's what you need to get started. You told me, and I got it.
So, be careful what you wish for. So, yeah, but Jack and I, we came up with the stakeholder program. We sold 100 positions in 6 minutes. And what I didn't think about when I knew to run a business, you need people to support you. You need 100 true fans, whatever, 1,000 true fans. What I didn't think about was the value that those customers would bring to me. I have many stakeholders in this room, and the level of professionalism of the stakeholders that I have is unbelievable. And they have helped me shape my business to what it is and what it's going to be. So in April of 2022, my boys and I, we went down to the Buffalo River and did a survival kayaking trip. Some friends of ours were like, hey, we're going to put together this father-son trip, go float the buffalo, and we're not going to take any food. And we're only going to eat what we can forage and what we can catch. And in April, the picking's a little slim. So I thought, yeah, this is right up my alley. That trip was crazy. I should have been a better prepper and took things to be prepared, because you never know what's going to happen. So thankfully, at this time in 2019, one of my stakeholders had told me a story where his wife was out. They were out somewhere by a body of water, and a boat capsized. And his wife swam out and rescued not one, not two, but 3 people. His wife runs every day, and she had the ability to see somebody in need and render help. And being a father of 10 children, probably one of the scariest things to think about would be your son or your child drowning and watching and not being able to do anything about it. So at one of these events, I met another one of my stakeholders, Mr. Miller, who was a border patrol agent and who did a lot of running. And so in 2019, I started off just walking, and then I started running, and I started losing weight, started doing the keto thing. And by April of 2022, I was probably in the best shape of my life that I'd ever been. And little did I know that I would need to be in good shape, because we embarked on this kayaking trip with my 2 sons, Malachi and Judah, and they were in their own kayaks. They really didn't know how to swim. They could do a little bit of swimming, but they'd never been on a river. They had never they weren't prepared for this trip. But I wanted to go out and kind of push our limits and do something fun. And I told my boys, I'm like, listen, you guys got to stay close. Don't be stupid. Don't do dumb stuff. And to make matters worse, we had got a lot of rain going like right before the trip. So much so that the water, like it was to where it was right at that limit of like, you need to be an experienced rafter to be on the river. People die every year because of flooding and rivers and things, especially when people are not used to it. They didn't grow up around it. So I was pretty nervous, and I was talking with Chris, my stakeholder, because not only is he a border patrol agent, but he does swift water rescue and, a bunch of other stuff like that. And I'm like, hey, I don't know if I should go. The water's kind of questionable. My boys don't really know how to swim. And so I bought some stuff. I bought a throw rope just in case, we need to rescue somebody. It's always safer to throw them a rope than to try to get in the water. But anyways, we embark on this kayaking trip, and we're having fun, and it's beautiful. It's cold. We had foraged some worms and things that we could find to do some fishing along the way. We had fishing kits, and Judah kept getting out in front of me a little ways. And I told him, I'm like, son, you got to stay close, because the current was taking us, and I didn't want him getting out of sight, getting too far ahead of the group and stuff. And so, I'd reel him back in, and he'd get out there again. Son, you got to come back. And one of the dangers on a river is getting caught in a strainer. So for people that don't know, like, a strainer would be something that's lodged in the water that will you'll get stuck in it, and the water will drag you under and can pin you. And so I try to tell my boys, like, the dangers of kayaking, what to look out for, follow us, we'll kind of lead the way. Well, Judah gets out there, and I'm just getting ready to say to him again, like, hey, you're too far out there. I can't get to you in time if you need help. And there was a big bend coming up. And so he got out there by the bend of the river, and there was a tree off into the water. And sure enough, he got stuck right in it. And I'm like, great. So I start paddling for him, and he's holding on to this limb, but then that's causing him to kind of go under. And his kayak is getting filled with water, and he's like, I'm okay, Dad. I'm okay. I'm okay, Dad. It's okay. And I'm like, you're not okay, dude. Like, you're in deep trouble. And so I'm paddling for him, just getting to him as quick as I can. And I didn't want to overshoot him. So I get up to him. Now we're both stuck in the tree. And I'm like, I don't really know. Like, there's no good way to get out of the situation. And he's trying to death grip on the tree and the kayak, trying not to lose his stuff. And I'm like, just let everything go. And we get pulled into the water, kayaks tip over, and we're carrying bags with, like, our tents, our sleeping bags, because we're doing a 2-day kayaking trip where we're camping on the bank at night it's still cold weather out. And so we all go under, and I just grabbed him and started swimming to shore. And it's April. It's still, the water's cold. It's still cold. But thankfully, he did this all by a place with a bridge and people standing out watching the whole thing happen. So I swim up to the bank, and, we get out of the water, and my adrenaline was going, and he was obviously pretty shooken up and cold and wet. Thankfully, the crowd that we were with went and rescued the stuff. They got his gear, they got the kayak, and we got it all back to the bank. And I was like, dude, this is why I told you, you stay close. And thankfully, nobody was, I didn't lose my son that day. But I know that had that happened just a few years earlier, I probably would have had an asthma attack trying to rescue my son. There would have been 2 people in trouble, not just one. So the edge that you want starts today. Sharpening a knife is a skill. And like any skill that you have, it requires practice. I really liked what Andy was saying about training. We need to all be training, because we don't know when the next disaster is going to strike. Every day life just goes on, and we just take it for granted that we have food, we have water, we have what we need to survive and to be healthy and happy. But you never know when disaster is fixing to strike. And that's why we train and we prepare for when times get tough, or even if they don't. Set goals. This is a view out my window of my barn house overlooking my pond. I set lofty goals. I set impossible goals. Because I truly believe there's really not much that you can't do if you set your mind to it and you start making progress towards those goals. This is the barn that we bought, and my wife's like, hey, let's make it a house. I always thought, like, after remodeling many fixer-uppers, that if I had the money, I would just go ahead and build new. And here I am again, remodeling something old inside the barn. It was a lot of work. What goals do you have? What goals have you set for yourself? Are they challenging? Thankfully, I wish I could say we were 8 months in building our place. We're going on almost 3 years of being on our property, and we still don't have a finished house. I still don't have a finished shop. But Friday, we poured the floor, so we're making progress. Train. Start training. Start young. You know, one of the biggest things in training is consistency. This goes for running a business. It goes for setting goals and training as well. Consistency is king. I set a goal to run a sub 4 hour marathon. Very few people actually run a marathon, and less than 30% of people who do run a marathon can do it under 4 hours. That's about a 9-minute mile pace for 26.2 miles. Can I do it? I don't know, but I'm going to train and I'm going to try. And, you know, people make judgments about people, and I have the mentality of come check back in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. It takes time, but you can make progress. So I just got done running a half marathon Sunday, and I decided, instead of trying to do after last year's training for the marathon, it takes a lot of time. And I decided, you know, maybe I should try to get a sub 2 hour half marathon before I try to get another sub 4 hour marathon. So these are my splits. My training this year, I've ran 2 marathons and several half marathons. And my first marathon I ran took almost 6 hours. My second marathon that I ran last year, I got down to 5:15. Every marathon and even half marathon training program I've done has had me do a long run of 20 miles. So you work your mileage up slowly to get your body ready for the type of abuse that's going to see in doing 26 miles. But even the half marathon training plan I did, I believe I still ran 20 miles for a 13.1 mile race. But this year's training plan was different. I used a different coach and different thing, and I was doing a whole lot of threshold work. And for people that don't know, like, your threshold work is the point at which your intensity, your body can't keep up with the oxygen consumption, and it builds up lactic acid in your muscles. And eventually, once your muscles get full of lactic acid, you will stop running. So This year's training was a lot harder. It wasn't as long as miles, but it was a lot more intense. And I was really concerned that I was going to be able to complete my half marathon because my long run for this half marathon this year was 6 miles. I was only running like 14 miles a week. And so I didn't know how to go into this half marathon. I felt like I wasn't ready. I felt like my training plan, I felt like maybe I had set my goals too high and that my training plan was trying to make up for my lack of speed. So I really didn't know how to run the race. I was really concerned whether or not I was going to be able to finish. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go out and I'm just going to run. One coach said a half marathon is a 10-mile warm up with a 5K race at the end. And so I decided to take that advice and I started out, kind of easy. And at about 4 miles to the end, I decided to kind of kick up the pace. I was feeling pretty good. And I just started head hunting. In fact, during the marathon, I was running alongside this guy that was about my age, built like a tank. The dude was big. And we were running. And I said something to him. He said his buddies got him to sign up for it. And he hadn't really trained for it. And he was a SWAT. He worked for the SWAT in the prison, I think is what he said, which was interesting. I didn't know. But it sounded like he was kind of pushing it really hard. And we were probably mile 7 or 8 when I started running alongside him. And he said something about, well, you seem pretty composed. And one thing about racing is a lot of people start out too hard. And if you start out too hard, you're not going to finish the race. And that's the mistake that most beginners make. So anyways, we talked. I was like, I kind of thought he was pushing it a little too hard, but I let him go because I was running my own race. About 4 miles out, I decided to pick up the speed and decided it was time to see what was left in the tank. And I started picking people out in front of me and headhunting. And when I got to him, actually, it was pretty quick. I caught up to him and I was like, it's time to start headhunting. And he just kind of laughed and I went on. And it was fun. I'll tell you what, when you're racing, a lot of times, if you push too hard at the beginning, at the end of the race, you start getting passed. And nothing more discouraging than to be tired and worn out and to start seeing people pass you. And every time somebody passes you, you just get a little more discouraged. And I was bringing some of that discouragement to people. So it ended up pretty good. I had even a 8:41 mile pace at mile 13. And I ended up setting PRs for 6, 7 different distances, and all at the end of the race. I didn't quite set my 2-mile PR, but I set my 5K, my 10K, my 15K, my 10 mile, my 20K, and my half marathon PR. When you set goals, it requires patience. This is Strava. It's a running app that kind of tracks your training. And this didn't start recording, or let's see, I think 2020, mid 2020, but this is my kind of progression of training. And you can see, I've got some valleys and I got some life circumstances happened right here, and going back to what I said about consistency is I realized the good thing about running is you can make good progress pretty quick. I mean, looky here, when I started out, how much progress I made. But the bad thing about it is you lose it really quick. The minute you stop working, you start losing progress. And so my goal this year was to get started a little bit earlier and to try to be a little more consistent. And I plan on trying to make it through this winter running, and hopefully next year, if not, if I haven't reached my goal of that sub 4-hour marathon, hopefully I'll be a little bit closer. But I say all that to say, anything worth doing requires time, and it takes patience and consistency. Set some goals for yourself. Set some high goals. Train hard. And be patient. I hope that I encourage you guys to prepare for when life gets tough, or even if it don't. So that's not really all I had. I hope that it's helpful. We got any questions?
Any questions?
Any goals? Anybody care to share their goals? You know, one thing important about setting goals is to write them down and tell somebody else about them, because the minute you write them down, and especially the minute you tell somebody, you've got something called accountability.
I'm curious how old your boys were when you took them on that trip, and sounds like you are being mindful of like maybe some of the rites of passage they go through and so forth. So I'm kind of curious as to what you're thinking about as as your children go through those life stages and how you're addressing that.
Thank you, Alan.
First time I was at his house, that kid was building a rocket ship to go to the moon.
Yeah, Judah's a hoot. So Judah, first of all, don't ever ask somebody with 10 kids how old their kids are, because they don't know. No. Malachi just turned 17. Judah, I believe, is 14, getting ready to turn 15. So that was 3 years ago. He would have been, whatever the math is, 11, 12.
He can only multiply. He can't subtract.
I can, yeah, that's true. I got addition too, buddy. No. What was the second part of your question?
Are you being mindful about the rites of passage for your boys?
Oh,
Like
yes.
how are you approaching that?
So for me, there was a time in my life where, and I was just talking to Nick about this, young men they feel the need to prove that they are indeed men. And I want my children to know that, especially my boys, that, hey, you know, you're in the process of becoming a man. And that's a journey, and it doesn't come overnight. But yes, I want to give them situations to build their confidence. And, you know, I try to tell my sons, it's like, the harder sometimes you try to prove that you're a man, the more you prove that you're not. We have to know that I don't really know where that comes from. Fathers need to teach their children, or give their children the blessing and tell them, you know, hey, son, you're a man. And sometimes you speak that before it's even the truth, because we can speak life into people and encourage them, or we can tear them down. And so I try to be observant and try to build my children up. And I know sometimes I fail and sometimes I tear them down. But so yeah, I am very aware of that. Another quick story that happened on that trip that I forgot to tell you was, Malachi does not do well if he doesn't eat. And overnight, he started getting really sick. I don't know if his blood sugar was off or what, but he was struggling bad. So here we are, camped out on a sandbar in the middle of nowhere, and my son is having problems. And I really wasn't sure if I was going to have to call for help or not, because he was shaky and weak. And so I went to some of the other guys. I'm like, hey, does anybody got any food? Like, my son needs to eat. He's not doing well. And everyone's like, no, this is a survival trip, you know? And so thankfully, one guy who wasn't me had brought like some sort of power bar or something. And so I got that and I gave it to my son. And, you know, it's like, it's cool to do survival type stuff, but have a plan B and C, you know? And, you know, to do it over again, I would have taken some, it's easy to think, oh, it's just overnight, but what happens when the trip gets extended, or what happens, you know, like in my case, you know, you want to be smart about it.
What happens when someone cuts your sleeping bag open?
Yeah. You know, what are you talking about, David?
So you called for what are our goals? My goal is to lose 60 pounds by April 1st of next year and 120 pounds by Christmas of next year.
Excellent. We'll write it down, and we have it now, video evidence. And no, I tell you what, I follow a couple people on Instagram. This one guy, man, he's 660 pounds, I think is where he started out, and he's dropped some weight. And it's inspiring to see people set goals. And you know what? I think that's a great goal. And I hope that we can encourage you, keep you accountable. And I hope that, you know, even if you miss or fail, that you just, every day is a new day and just keep trying to go towards that goal. David, what are you talking about? Cutting people's sleeping bags. You got a story about sleeping bags cut?
Yeah.
You're damn dirty.
Any other questions?
Well, I got one more thing to share.
Okay.
If I got time. Do we got
A
time?
little bit.
So David and I decided to do a survival camping trip as well. What was the temperature, David? It was good. It was, we were talking about this. It was David's idea, I believe. We were going to go camping and only take 10 items. And so David picked one, I picked one, and I don't know. I think he took 11. He took dog.
Hey, you kept it alive.
And
It's the only warm thing I had.
the weather,
Slept in like a miniature Tommy.
it was the coldest night of the year. It was like, I don't know, January, February. We got down into negative digits. And I had a mummy sleeping bag. And it was a rough camping trip. I had a Kelly kettle and I had a water bottle. And so I would boil water, pour it in my water bottle, throw it in my mummy bag. It was cold still. And I suffered through most of the night, just sleeping for an hour or two. And then I'd have to heat my water up again until I found out that I could pull the mummy bag down to where I just had my nose and my mouth out of it. And then I slept pretty good. David's over here, unzip his sleeping bag, just like, I don't know, like the cold didn't really seem to faze him, but he did have dog to keep him warm. So, yeah, we learned a little bit about testing gear before you go out. So, but question. Set some goals, guys. Maybe we'll start a thread on Telegram where we can write down our goals and help keep.
Yeah, yeah, there aren't enough. All right, let's hear it for Patrick. We will be back in this room for, I think it's John Pugly.